Hey, everybody, you're listening to the Break It Down Show. This is Scott Husing, co-producer, and we have a very special show for you today. Gunnery Sergeant Harold C. Quivers. He was my drill instructor at Officer Candidate School back in the day, and he is actually the first Marine I ever saluted. So this is a great episode of brotherhood, camaraderie, and really reconnecting with someone that essentially shaped me into the person I've become today. So sit back, enjoy the show, and listen to how the experts train Marines. As always, this episode is proud to support SaveTheBrave.org, helping veterans with post-traumatic stress. So please help make a difference in veterans' lives. Go to SaveTheBrave.org today. Please consider making a donation and really be the solution to preventing suicide. Thanks again.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Gunny Q. I'm on the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
This is pretty cool, right? I mean, Scott is co-host, and I'm going to shut up because he's your guest.
It is. So today we're recording, which we haven't talked about. It's Armed Forces Day. So anybody listen to the show, we got a lot of vets listening to the show, but 3 vets sitting in here, and Gunny Q was my senior drill instructor at Officer Candidate School when I was a punk candidate. I was a little older than the average bear, prior enlisted. Most people know that. So that's how we met. And just facts for the listeners why we're doing this show is I get a call out of blue before the whole COVID thing hit. And it was Gunny read the book. And, so he started talking. I says, hey, you got to come up. He's in San Diego. And I said, yeah, bring it up, man. Let's get a hang in. And not only was he very instrumental in shaping everything I learned, how to officer the Marine Corps, but was also my first salute. And there's a tradition in the military for officers, the person who salutes you the first, you give him a silver dollar coin. So he still owes me $1. He's got $1 on my cash. But I don't know, you give me your opinion, Q. How many guys that are in the military have an opportunity to see recruits or people they've trained and then reunite after 22 years?
For me, it was very little, unfortunately, because, pretty much everybody's doing their thing and they're so involved, and they go out to these formal schools they gotta commit to, and then they just go elsewhere. They just pursue their career. So it's fortunate that I was able to at least link up with you. Like I told you, you're one of my favorite candidates.
How much truth is in that?
Truth in what?
Like when you have hundreds of people come through.
How many people are you pumping through Quantico, Virginia every year?
Oh, man. When I was working at OCS at Quantico, I was considered permanent personnel, so I was there all year round. And a lot of people, well, even Marines probably don't realize that during the summer months, it's the busiest time of the year for Officers Candidate School. So you got Marines that are stationed at Quantico that are former drill instructors that had an 8511 background. Of course, the MOS has changed. I know the MOS is now under a different number because OCS was really busy during the summertime. The former drill instructors were issued temporary additional duty orders to come to OCS to help out.
It becomes a sausage factory of making officers, but so like 1,000 a year. How many? I'm not sure how many they crank out.
Me being permanent personnel. I'm trying to think what the numbers were. It's been more than 20 years ago. So,
how many cohorts in a year?
I'm sorry?
How many cohorts? How many classes come through?
For permanent personnel, I probably pushed we had a fall and winter class. So every year I was pushing I had a fall class, a winter class, and then a summer class. So we're talking, you got approximately anywhere from 50, 60 candidates per platoon. So
there's 6 platoons per company. So,
right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
This is up over 1,000.
Right.
Somewhere in there. So.
Yep.
And how many people are you interacting with daily? How many of these students belong to you where you're like, these are my shitheads?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking anywhere from 50 to 60 officer candidates.
Right.
I'm dealing with them every day, training them. 50% of the evaluation was based on leadership.
Mm-hmm.
25% academics. The other 25% was just pretty much physical fitness. Officer candidates, 50% of their evaluations based on leadership because they're coming there to be leaders and Marines. You know, when they graduate, they're going off to the basic school, which is known as TBS. A lot of infantry type skills that they got to learn while they're going through that, which is very challenging. But yeah, Officer Candidate School is the majority of the evaluations based on the leadership.
I think it's probably physically was harder than boot camp. Like,
oh yeah,
physical
yeah.
fitness wise, like you look at Q, like he's still in shape, you know, he's still crushing. But I mean, they used to run us. It was physically grueling, and some of the events
definitely
that they go through are, I mean, they're designed to make people fail, like those people that quit. And I think what's cool too, and you can talk about this too, so people understand is, you know, boot camp is a breaking down where they rip you down and build you into that basic Marine. Vice Officer Candidate School, where you are tasked with the really awesome responsibility of evaluating potential to be an officer, not make an officer, you know, per se, but that do they have the potential to do that. And I've said it throughout my career as an officer that you really need to place a high value on the staff NCO leadership in the Marine Corps. And anything I ever learned about officering, I learned from day one from staff NCOs. And one of my biggest regrets, even as a commander, was not talking to my staff NCOs enough, because you look at that guy, you're like, oh, that's Gunny Q. He's just got it. Like, I didn't have to sit down with them and say, like, hey, man, like, what should we be doing more of? I'm not saying I didn't do it.
right.
But do you think that still was and still probably a trend in how officers and senior enlisted interact?
You know, earlier you had mentioned kind of somewhat like the difference between boot camp and Officers Candidate School. So, I mean, I'll have to admit, Officers Candidate School was definitely more physically and challenging in comparison to, you know, on the enlisted side going to boot camp. You know, I remember, you know, I can recall when I was stationed in Okinawa, I got orders and I volunteered. I actually called Headquarters Marine Corps and asked them, can I go back to the B billet type MOS? And B billet specifically means, you know, going back, you know, in my case, going back to the drill field. They didn't have any room for me to go back to MCRD San Diego or MCRD Parris Island. My Marine Corps monitor at the time had asked me, well, we need some help at Officers Candidate School. I was like, I'm good to go. Send me. Leave Okinawa, take like 30 days leave, and I'm going back home, and I'm staying with my parents. I remember getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going out and running 4 and 5 miles, you know, preparing myself to go to Officers Candidate School. And I can remember my dad passed me on his way to work on one of the roads I was running down. And he was, you know, later in the day, he was like, dang, what the hell are you doing? You know, why are you getting up so early and, you know, running 3 and 4 miles, 5 miles? I was like, hey, Dad, you know, I'm getting myself prepared to go to Officers Candidate School so I can get myself in shape. And I can remember one point in time I called Officers Candidate School and found out the sergeant major that was a sergeant major at Officers Candidate School was my senior drill instructor in boot camp at Parris Island, Sergeant Major Webb. I get there. When I get to Officers Candidate School, the training staff have to go through a course, you know, before we pick up the officers candidates. And, you know, we have to go through which is pretty much just this training evolution where, you know, we go on these runs. We want to make sure that all the instructors, we go to these different run routes that we're going to take the candidates on when we pick up the candidates. One of the things that you don't want to do, and the reason why we did this, because we wanted to make sure, you know, we knew where we were running, because there's occasions where a drill instructor would have to take so many candidates per platoon on a run route. So, you know, this is all the stuff that we kind of prepared for before we picked up the officers candidates. We wanted to make sure all the drill instructors, you know, what they were in for and things of that nature. But anyways,
it's a legit PT session. And
right.
If you don't know, Quantico, Virginia is where all Marine Corps officers are trained, and that's where we go. And you put so many miles, dude, on your feet. I was just thinking about it. Remember, you go from the barracks we were at and then walking to chow 3 times a day. I mapped it out. It was like a half mile just marching, obviously.
Marching, yeah, different than walking.
To the chow hall. So that's 1 mile to and from each meal. That's 3 miles you're walking. Then there's PT after that, and they're usually running anywhere from 3 to 5 miles. And then you got hikes in there. It's like you log hundreds and hundreds of miles at Officer Candidate School. So, you got to be in top physical condition. And I mean, Gunny Q, he was even, super lean, like how old were you then as a Gunny? I mean, I was 27.
So I don't have a problem.
You could have been much older.
I don't have a problem in sharing my age. So I'm 59 years old right now.
Yeah.
So you're talking like 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like 35 years old. And most of the candidates aren't me.
Right.
They're like college grads,
right.
22, 23 years old. And you're putting these miles on your body and just, crushing guys into fine powder. And the physical demands, I look back on that, I think there's probably nothing harder physically, like endurance wise and keeping up with that. And then to be 35 years old, that's kind of, you fast forward and like when I was a commander and you got a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids in the company, it is a young man's game.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So when you're talking about having the discipline to get up at 3:30 in the morning to stay ahead of the power curve, that place is relentless.
Relentless. And being a drill instructor at Officer Candidate School, it's like very long hours.
What's drill pay in the Marines? Do you guys have that?
We don't really have drill instructor. There wasn't really a drill instructor pay. You just got, you got your active duty base pay, based on your rank.
So
there was no special.
There's no incentive.
No, there's no.
And in the Army, it's like
cheapest fuckers out there, man. Of course, we don't have any extra.
No.
Like, here's your special duty pay.
Right.
Was there also things like, we called it staff duty, but like when you have to sit there and mind the barracks, like someone has to be in charge? This would be in addition to his regular duty.
You always had to have a drill instructor with the officer candidates 24/7. So, for example, like, my platoon consisted of 4 members. You had your platoon sergeant, and then you had your sergeant instructor. So I was a platoon sergeant when I was there, and I had two sergeant instructors under my supervision. Then you had a platoon commander who was typically in most cases was a captain.
And were you guys ever full staff? Like, were all of your billets always filled with Marines to handle the amount of people you had?
Yes, there was. Yeah,
because that's where the
staff.
Army gets you. They're like, hey, how about quarter staff? And you're like, damn.
Yeah, Barnett was the other guy.
Right.
And he was like old as dirt, man. That guy was like, he looked like he was 80, but he was a gunny. And then you got Gunny Q, who's looks like a fucking superhero with like a, 28-inch waist and a 40-inch chest. He used to walk around like, make way, candidates. I'm wide. Like, he's got, it's in the summer, sleeves roll up, he's all jacked, his biceps are bulging. He's just like, yeah, get out of my way, I'm wide. Because we were talking about this before the show, which is cool because, it is a bit of acting. You have your own voice. Some people scream, some people are low and deep and gravelly, but they all have a little bit with the candidates or the recruits they interact with. And I was lucky because I'd already seen behind the curtain. Yeah. So I like telling the story because it's funny because I got in trouble a lot at OCS, not for really fucking off, but because I had a lack of bearing. And unlike boot camp, they can't put you in the sand pit and make you do squat thrusts or push-ups. Yep. They give you an essay because you're college graduates. And enlisted should never be punishing officer candidates. So I got a multitude of essays for lack of military bearing because I was always laughing my dick off at the bits because they were so good. Or it was just the candidate across the rack from you in the squad bay. You're hanging out and it's some boob from BFE North Dakota and he doesn't know what a boot band is if you snapped him in the face with it. And they're just, so it was like a 12-week comedy routine for me, and I was always getting busted for that. But it was also cool too because Q was talking about he cat herded up all the prior enlisted guys that had been on active duty already. He's like, hey, he gives us the responsibility speech. He's like, hey, some of these guys don't know the boot band. Like they don't know what it is. Like, what is this stretchy thing? It's like a rubber band you put around and blast your boots up, idiot. Who doesn't know that? Well, if you've never been in the military, you don't.
Right.
And so he put us all in these leadership positions and, from company commander to company commander. I think like Here's a testament, because he never really answered the question like I was his favorite candidate. I think maybe I was maybe one of the more reliable ones, because I think for like, how long was OCS? Is it 12 weeks?
See, when you were there, it was like a 6-week program, right?
No, that was like the PLC.
Yeah, so you were there for...
Yeah, it wasn't 12 weeks. It was maybe it was 9.
Yeah, maybe about like 9, give or take.
Something like that. But
yeah.
I remember for the last 4 weeks, I was the candidate company gunnery sergeant, which normally they rotate billets out like every week. They're like, no, Husing,
Done.
you got it. Like you're
Done.
doing like they wouldn't say I was doing a great job, but like, yeah, you're still gonna be a cat. Like, because I was basically running shit when they weren't around to micromanage stuff. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, I can't get a break. So like, I never had any free time, because not only was I just learning how to be an officer, I was also managing all the other candidates, and they give you an eval on like how you do each one of these roles. And
right.
they only do that if they trust you, which is kind of a good thing. And then when you graduate, you get, there's like the honor man. He's the top guy in the class. And like, I think I was like number 4 or 5 or something like that. But, so I was one of the top guys, but I don't know. That line of gray is pretty narrow, because even the worst guy that graduates that school is pretty shit hot.
Right.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a drill instructor?
That was always a goal of mine, and I realized that probably like when I was 4 years in the Marine Corps. Just to know that would enhance my career. It was just a goal. I mean, I was always, when I was going through boot camp and I seen how my drill instructors carried themselves and how much they put into making civilians into Marines, that left an impression on me. And I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to be a DI one day. I want to do the same thing. I want to turn civilians into Marines. I was the guy that volunteered to go to DI school. So I ended up, when I did volunteer for DI school, I did my first tour as a drill instructor at MCRD San Diego. And it was a hell of an experience. It's just, for me, it was very rewarding.
Talk about the guys that you didn't make Marines.
The guys I didn't make Marines, are you talking in an aspect of the Marines that we had to drop?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of drama that goes on at boot camp and OCS.
Yeah,
that a lot of times does not go public, with injuries or suicides. There's talk about that. Talk about the ones that you had hopes for and you couldn't make a Marine. Like that is everything you had, all the tools you had, you just could not make this guy a Marine.
We had some Marines. Well, at least when I was a drill instructor, we had a percentage of Marines that just didn't have what it took to be a Marine.
Yeah.
You hate to drop them. You give them every chance that you can give them.
Because your job is to turn these people into leaders, right?
And when we pick, so when the Marines arrive at MCRD San Diego, whether it be, whether it's San Diego or Paris Island, they got to go through an administrative process before they get dropped to the training staff, right? So they got to go through what is called receiving barracks, where they get their uniforms. They got to go through, like I said earlier, they got to go through all this administrative type stuff. And then after everything's said and done with that, then they get dropped off to their drill instructors. And we're not expecting a brand new recruit to go out and run an 18-minute 3-mile. We give them a chance to build up to that physical.
The standard.
Yeah, the standard.
Not your
right,
standard,
right.
The standard.
Right.
Yeah.
So we give them a chance to, to build up to the standards of the Marine Corps when it comes to physical fitness.
Yeah.
If you have a percentage of recruits that just keep dropping out of runs, I mean, you really don't have a choice but to drop them. Because 18? you have recruits that get dropped because of physical reasons. Very small percentage of academics that they get dropped, or they just can't handle it mentally.
Not to say that you can be really dumb and be a Marine, because we are very smart creatures.
Right.
We just don't advertise it.
Is an 18-minute 3-mile the standard? Or
no, it's not the standard. No, it's not the standard. That's moving. Yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Right.
So to run 18 miles, because the Marine Corps physical fitness program, at least when I was there, if you ran 18 minutes or better, you would score 100 point for the running portion of the PFT, because you got the pull-ups and what's now that I think is called the crunches.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, you have Marines that just can't meet those standards in boot camp. Now, so we do recognize Marines that have what we call at the time, we always say, this Marine got a lot of intestinal fortitude. Okay. He's got the heart. He wants to be a Marine. So we give him we give him a second chance, and we might send him off to a physical fitness platoon.
Sure.
Right. But the only disadvantage of that is that it's going to drop his graduation back.
Yeah.
But at least
It's like a holding pattern for someone that can't pack the
and
gear.
then, you have Marines that come there, they're overweight, so we send them off to a physical fitness platoon, and give them an opportunity to drop a little bit of weight overall.
Yeah.
We do give them a chance.
And how much do you advise these guys in their approach to their test too? Because like I would know cats that would they would blow out. They would do all of their push-ups, and that would take away. In the Army, we do push-ups, and then that would take away from their sit-ups. They'd still maybe get really good on their sit-ups, but by the time they got to the run, they had no chance. They'd blown it all out. Like instead of just know the number you can do so that you can continue on, and each time you're rested because you don't get time to rest. I mean, one to the next event.
Right.
Are you advising these guys on these kind of things?
Oh yeah, we're definitely advising them. That's one of the reasons why if they don't, meet the standards, we send them off to like these physical fitness platoons to give them the opportunity to build up, to get, to build up their, their physical standards. Yeah. Like I said, they get dropped back on a graduation date, but, eventually they'll get sent back to another platoon.
Because I've seen, my peers when we're all running, and like if you would stop crisscrossing your body so much when you were you're running sideways more than you're running forward, and then like with your push-up approach and each one of these things has a strategy. Like you guys do pull-ups, you have to have some physical fitness, but you also have to use like a technique to actually do the whole event well. I don't mean cheat. I mean like your approach to the thing.
Like when I was going through DI school, I can recall, when I was when I was a student at drone instructor school, we had a couple of drone instructor students that they really didn't know how to run. Yeah. So the drone instructor staff at the DI school would, they would really sit back and say, hey, you're not running right, and they would have to teach these guys how to run. Yeah. The arm swing and things of that nature. Yeah. Once they were trained on how to run, it actually improved how they run. Yeah. And they were actually getting better run times.
Right. And then how much time are you spending directly educating these candidates? Obviously someone's there 24/7, but they're also going to classrooms to learn whatever supply or whatever it's going to be.
Gunny Delphos. That guy was fucking crazy.
Was he?
Yeah.
Right.
He was there was an instructor cadre, wasn't there?
I can't recall. No.
Like dudes that just gave up. Like Q was never on the stage. Like we'd march to the classroom, which was another quarter mile. Yeah.
Right. Always marching.
Fucking always walking. Yeah. Marching.
Were you guys allowed to do route step? Or is it always march?
Yeah. Yeah. This was just some route stepping going on, which is like informal marching.
Right.
For the listeners.
Or really formal walking.
But really formal walking. But he was never like on the stage. They had, like if you're in the squad bay or you're doing drill. Yeah. Marching, doing manual of arms, like rifle movement stuff. It was him. Like he was always the guy in front of us doing it, and drill was his thing. Like because the best cadence. Like
I don't
know if we took drill or not, or our platoon, but we came in first for something.
Yeah, I can't remember if we. Yeah.
We came in first the physical, like the O course. Right. I was like. I know the O course was my thing. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I was pretty badass on the O course. Nice. And then Pugil sticks. Yeah. And then you put me in the ring. Like I won the Pugil stick thing, and I wasn't some big heavyweight, but I had some technique. Yeah. Because I was like 185 pounds. Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, Husing's my guy. And he throws me in with Harvey. Big yoke. And me and Lieutenant Harvey wind up serving together.
Oh, okay.
Harvey's like fucking Emmett Smith, man. Like I do my best, and then like he just pummels me, man, like a clown. But we're still friends to this day. From
that's good.
From that experience. That's good to hear. And I think that's one of the coolest things about it, whether you're talking about boot camp or OCS or these institutions that the military has. The bonds you form and the teamwork is never more intense. And we're going to talk about this on another show and in many forums, but with everything going on in the world right now with these riots and Seattle and the racial diversity is one of the things I love to talk about. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, with your experience and background and being in the Marines, for 20 plus years like me. Is there's no other segment of American society that is the smallest percentage, less than 0.5%, that has more racial, ethnic, gender, or cultural diversity, yet is so singularly focused on mission accomplishment, and it doesn't even become an issue to us. Looking back at how we did things and what we're doing now, I mean, how do you think that, I mean, what are your thoughts on all that with everything that's going on?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff going on these days. Now that I'm working from home, I get a chance to watch, the news pretty much every day. And I see the things that they're talking about on the news, with police brutality, all this racial tension stuff going on. There's definitely got to be a change, as far as I'm concerned. There's got to be an end to this. A lot of unnecessary stuff going on.
Let's think between us girls, like using some of our own analogies, which we like to use, because I agree. There's always going to be bad. There's bad people in any organization. The Marine Corps is no exception. The Army is no exception. Policing, fire departments. It's all about the training and certification, which we've been in training pipelines, and we know the importance on that. But the certification thing for me is what's most critical when we're talking about the police brutality. Mm-hmm. But think back to this, because you came in the Marine Corps before me, and there was this thing that was thrown around jokingly called hazing. Like, right. He wasn't hazed enough. And then we're talking about physical abuse for minor infractions, like, oh, your boots aren't polished enough, I'm going to punch you in the fucking chest. Right. That happened. Right as I came in the Marine Corps, that was becoming a bad word. Hazing was becoming a bad word. So I'm not going to say whether I was hazed or not hazed to that degree. But look at our own organization. That we placard our offices and our meet rooms with. It we take such great pride in. We're not innocent from our own forms of this that we see in the policing agencies or the tensions that we see out in the world. And Pete and I were talking about. They're talking about changing the names of bases because of we've torn down some statues too when we were in Iraq. Right, if you recall. Right, I recall that. Yeah. So. I mean, do you think it's easy, especially in our tribe as veterans, like do you get a sense that there's some hypocrisy in that?
Yeah, somewhat. So I want to kind of talk about the hazing thing.
Did you haze guys?
Yeah, I have hazed recruits when I was at MCRD San Diego. Mm-hmm. It was a lesson learned, and I learned from that. I did some things I wasn't supposed to do, and I don't want to get real specific about that right now because
you don't have to get specific.
Well, yeah, but so what I can say is that after that experience that I had, I mean, I had a really good reputation in the company, and the company commander, who's now a major general, General Simcock. Yeah, I can remember going to his office and we talked about it, and he's like, I want you to stay within the company. He said, because you got a lot of experience. He said, you can train a lot of our drone instructors come out of DI school, which I did. I can remember an experience when we went up to Edson Range, because the Marines, when they go and get their basic field skills, they have to be bussed up to Camp Pendleton to get their marksmanship skills, and then they get some basic field skills while they're there. So I can remember, I just walked into the target shack back in there where the butts were located, and I heard this.
This is like early 80s.
Yeah, this is, right. Well, actually, this is back in the late 80s, like 89, 90 time frame. So I walk into the target shack where they used to make all these target frames for the targets. I heard this chainsaw running. So I walk in there, and I seen this drill instructor with a chainsaw up, he had a chainsaw up on the recruit's face. And his intentions wasn't not to hurt the recruit. It was his intentions was to intimidate the recruit. So apparently the recruit did something that he wasn't supposed to do to piss the drill instructor off. So the drill instructor figures that he can take this chainsaw and intimidate him. Yeah. And so, I walked up to this drill instructor. I was like, hey, I kind of gave him some hand and arm signals. I'm like, hey. Yeah. After everything was said and done, talked to him. I was like, what the hell are you doing? That's not necessary. There's other ways you can make your point across to get a recruit to comply with what he's supposed to do as a recruit other than taking a chainsaw and putting it up against his face. I said, that's definitely hazing. And what you were doing
definitely
is
psychotic.
Yeah, and what you were doing is totally unnecessary. I said, this can ruin your career. I said, you're fortunate that I was the one that walked in
Yes.
and saw this. I said, if it was one of our company commanders that saw this, I said, you'd have been done. Your career would have been over.
Yeah.
And I said, you can't do that.
Well, and what if that Marine goes to the chaplain and is like, hey, that drill instructor held a chainsaw to my face? That's going to require someone to investigate something.
Right. And see, that's
your career.
It's
right
such
there.
a ripple effect, not only for that kid if he's reported and the investigation, legal shit
Yeah.
that goes on, which is important.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very important to investigate anything, but the ripple effect if he didn't. That's always my concern. If that kid who had a chainsaw on his face from some guy that thought that was his leadership style, he's going to emulate that, and that's going to be how he goes through his entire tour or his entire career.
Right.
And he's going to taint the entire pool of Marines, and that's a hard cancer to eradicate once it seats. So I mean, that's why I think that's why I love asking this question, because I've never asked, we never had a drill instructor on the show, and to make these comparisons between the way we used to do things was all right, and it was cool to haze and pin blood stripes on guys and knee them and pin their chevrons through their skin and inflict physical pain, but we've learned that these are not effective techniques as leaders, as being the world's 911 force and everything that the posters and the cool, sexy commercials have with Marines jumping out of Ospreys and amphibious shipping. And I think the same can be said about policing, and with what we're dealing with is, even guys that have done it, Pete knows this, and I've said it on the air before, I'm no fucking choir boy. Right. I never professed to be, and I've been guilty of things. Looking back at the things you did too, I mean, you don't have to answer the question, but I'm sure you're not proud of it. I mean, there's a lot of points in my career that I'm also not proud of.
Right.
And
I
that's
want to jump in and say something too, because you talked about blood rank and blood stripes and that kind of thing, and just the audience probably doesn't know about this, but we all went through the era where that became not okay. And so basically for the audience's benefit, like when you get promoted, they'll pin, and it's like the rank usually has 1 or 2 pins on it, and then someone will jam that into your chest, into your breast, whatever, wherever it is, and then the next person comes along and literally pulls that thing out of your skin and then hits you again.
Right.
Or maybe you walk down a line and everybody gets to take a crack at you, to include your face, and depending on what kind of unit you're in and how tough you have to be. And when we look at like policing in general, like it's a very similar organization where this is what we put ourselves through. I'm not going to back down and say like, oh, don't do that to me. Anybody could, but no one would. And some people, like, I wasn't a puncher, so I'd be like, good job. Slug them on the arm like this hard. Not hard. Not even like a slug, just like an attaboy or an attalady. And my desire though is don't let up on me though. When I go through, you better give it to me, So like it's this cultural thing that like becomes a norm to accept this abuse that really doesn't do anything, like you're just like, I'm going to endure it. You're not going to think less of me for not doing it. But then you take that into the streets.
Right.
And now your peer is looking at it creates a lot of problems.
Yeah, it can be, it can be, it encourages, a bad influence.
Right.
Getting back to this Marine that I was telling you about, or I should say the drill instructor that was hazing this recruit. I don't know. Matter of fact, I know for a fact at the time no allegations came out, because the thing about a recruit going through boot camp, each recruit will be interviewed at least once while they're there at boot camp. So they'll be interviewed by one of the series commanders. So the series commanders will ask them questions like, hey, have you ever been physically or verbally abused while you were here at boot camp? You have some recruits will come out and say, hey, yeah, this drill instructor cussed at me, used profound language, or he performed some type of physical abuse. That will, entail an investigation.
Yeah.
So apparently this recruit has so much loyalty towards his drill instructors that he didn't allegate when he was interviewed, because we would know, the whole company would have known about it. So that drill instructor that I caught with the chainsaw up against this recruit's face, he was lucky. And that was not the first time that I had to counsel a drill instructor for doing something stupid. So I had the same experience when I was at Officers Canada School. I had a counselor drill instructor who I happened to get a chance to talk to because he was, I got a chance to talk to him at the gym one afternoon working out. He just happened to be there at the gym. And he's a Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps to this day. At Officers Canada School, he was doing things with Officers Canada that he wasn't supposed to do. So he's just basically hazing. Right. You know, and it happened on more than one occasion. So I got a chance to talk to him at the gym. I was like, look, I said, man, you can't keep doing this. I said, because all you're doing is you end up ruining your career. You know, I said, you got, you put this much time in the Marine Corps, and this is where you're at right now. Mm-hmm. You know, you have a lot of good opportunities ahead of you. You know, I said, you know, you are at OCS, you're a drill instructor. You was obviously a drill instructor before you came to OCS. I said, you know, you have opportunities to get promoted, you know? And I said, you know, obviously you want to be a sergeant major one day, and currently he is.
He's the top sergeant major. Black, right?
No, I can't. I wish I could remember his name, but no, he's not the top sergeant major, but he is a sergeant major, and glad to see where he's at right now because, you know, he obviously got promoted to first sergeant, then, you know, he got promoted to sergeant major, so people change. Yeah. People learn from their mistakes.
Even if you're the instructor, right?
Right, yeah. Right. You know, and you know, I'm really glad that I got a chance to talk to him about what he was doing. And maybe that gave him a chance to look himself in the mirror and say, hey,
I think those stories are important when you can actually remember a time where you hoped you'd made an impact. Mm-hmm. And then when people reach back out to you and they tell you that story, sometimes you don't even recollect it. You just say like, fuck, I don't even remember talking to the gym that day, but it made a difference.
As a matter of fact, his name just dawned on me, Sergeant Major McKenna. Can't remember his first name, but I know his last name's McKenna. Yeah. But he's the sergeant major. Well, he was a gunny at the time.
McKenna, if you're listening to this episode of the Breakdown Show, you're welcome. Gunny Q for hooking you up with a little brother right there.
Yeah. We should also mention that this episode is sponsored by Curve.
You know, that was
this episode is sponsored by Curve.
Right. Curve Cologne.
Yes.
But Sergeant Major McKenna, he was a damn good drill instructor, Officers of Canada School, and if he's listening, you know, hey, I wish you all the best. You know, you definitely accomplished a lot, you know, while you're in the Marine Corps, and I'm glad to see where you're at. Yeah.
Let me ask you about, so you're out there training young leaders, and it's hard. Like in the civilian community, leadership is acquired through different means. You don't have a Gunny Q making sure that you're squared away. And Gunny Q is off in the dark hours running. Because I know, like, look, when I was there, I would, whatever training it was, I would always be a road guard. And it was smart to let me go do that because I would look down on any of my instructors who I could out PT, which was most of them, right? I didn't mind if you weren't as fast as me, but if you were slovenly and you were trying to hold a standard on PT that was clearly well below mine. And that mattered to me. Right. You know, like if you're going to lead me, you better fucking be in shape, you know? And for the most part, drill sergeants are, and there are some that aren't, but you have to hold yourself to an even higher standard. I mean, these guys are doing hundreds of miles during the course, you know, like you've got to be out there. You can't hide. So how does that change your leadership style as you go through, as you learn, like, I really have to pay attention to these things? Because, you know, you can slack off later on when you're a regular unit, and slack off's relative. Mm-hmm. But how did that change your leadership ability?
You talk about from the physical aspect?
Just in general, like going through and holding these higher standards, because you can't be seen as weak. You have to be.
I was very anal when it comes to physical fitness. Yeah. So, I still work out to this day. I mean, I don't know, my workouts are not as near as intense as they were when I was in the Marine Corps. Yeah. Because, you know, like now, I mean, I got a real nice gym in my garage at home. Right. I don't do the heavy stuff. I just pretty much just lift weights to stay tuned. But when I was in the Marine Corps, PT was a big thing for me because my thing was, and I used to tell Marines, you know, you need to always be in shape, and you never know when you're going to combat. You know, you need to be in shape and always be prepared to go to combat. So I can remember when I was at Officers Canada School, even when I was a drill instructor at MCRD San Diego, I can remember when I had duty as a DI. That means I was spending the night with the recruits. Right. And the drill instructors are supposed to be there at all times with the recruits, right? When they're in a rack. What I used to do is I used to sneak out. But what I would do before I would sneak out, I would get with one of my fellow drill instructors who was next door in the barracks and say, "Hey, I need to go out for this run."
Yeah.
So I would take off after I had put the recruits in the rack, and I would take off and go run 3 miles.
Yeah.
At night.
Yeah. In your downtime.
On my downtime.
Yeah.
Then I'd come back. And that'd be it. I just had to get that PT in. Well, I would say additional PT.
Right.
Same thing at OCS. I would get with one of my fellow drill instructors if I had duty. I said, "Hey, I need to go." He said, "I'm letting you know I'm getting ready to go on a run in case anything happens. I'm getting ready to go for a 3-mile run."
Yeah.
And even a fellow drill instructor look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah. But that's how you hold the standard.
Right.
Your standard.
Yeah, that was my standard. I mean, I was the type of guy that the whole time I was in the Marine Corps, I never ran an 18-minute 3-mile.
Uh-huh.
My best time running 3 miles was 18:46.
Kind of soft.
Of course, to get to that level of running that 18:46 entailed me losing a lot of weight, especially when I was a drill instructor at MCRD San Diego. Mm-hmm. That's when I ran that 18:46 3-mile.
Yeah.
As far as the pull-ups and the crunches, it was no problem. I always scored 100 on those, but never ran 18 minutes or better on a 3-mile run.
What held you back from the 18 flat? What do you think it was?
I mean, as much as I ran, I just couldn't get it down to the 18 minutes. I was out there kicking ass.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know what it was. I just was one of those type of guys. Not everybody can run 18-minute 3 miles.
For sure. It's
even Marines.
By the way, averaging 6:15s for 3 miles is scooting.
I did it 3 times. One of them was at OCS, and then a couple other times. But I'm not built for speed like that. But aside from the physical component of it too, when I look back at the impact that your instructors have for you and on you, and the fact that you were chosen to train the trainers, that's such an honor to have that amount of trust placed in you. But I always carried this with me after I graduated, because everybody's got different job skill, and Q is an administrator in the personnel section, and that's what he managed. And I always remembered this. And I don't know if I ever shared this with you. I probably doubt it. I always remember saying to myself, man, I would love a guy just like Gunny Q as my company first sergeant, as a commander, someone who's physically fit, who is articulate, who commands respect from the Marines and has superior administrative skills. And lo and behold, I get Tom Foster walks in the door. Legal clerk, legal chief, administrator. And I tell you, and I wrote about it in the book, and I told Tom this, and he flew out here from Colorado for my birthday party in November. I wouldn't have traded that guy for some 20-year-old burnout first sergeant who'd been in the grunts his whole life, because Tom just loved fucking everything. And you were the guy. When I looked at Tom, I was like, I got it. I got my dream car. As the senior enlisted guy, I always tell that story to people, and I wanted to share that because it's really important, because a lot of people who are in organizations, they think, oh, I want to do this, but again, it's one of those things where you may not know it at the time, but you leave an impact on people, right? And it's fun to talk about all the funny shit that happens at OCS and everything, but.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because when I was working at OCS, I think it was after your time, I had a candidate that came through officer school. He's in my platoon. Make the long story short, came through OCS. He graduated, got commissioned. Next thing I know, I'm still at OCS at the time, right? And he calls me up, and the reason why he called me to get in contact with me, because he knew I was getting ready to come to the end of my tour at OCS. And he had asked me when he called me, he's like, he goes, hey, Gunny, where you? He said, your tour at OCS is getting ready to come up here shortly, right? I was like, yeah. I said, I have no idea where I'm going. I said, I didn't get any orders issued to me yet. He's like, okay, that's good. I was like, why is that? He said, because I got some plans for you. I was like, okay, where are you going? Where are you going with this? He's like, I want you to come, because at the time he was at adjutant at the Marine Corps Air Station at Quantico when he graduated from TBS. And he says, look, I want you to come to the Marine Corps Air Station. He says, I want you to be my squadron gunny. He said, and the benefit of that, he said, I don't know if you have any, he said, I don't know what your feelings are as far as rotating to another unit or leaving Quantico and going elsewhere in the Marine Corps. He said, you know, how you feel about that? I was like, that'd be great. Cause I said, I don't really want to transfer anywhere else. I said, I'd rather stay here at Quantico. He's like, okay. He says, I'm going to talk to your monitor at headquarters Marine Corps. He said, he said, I really would like you to come and be the squadron gunny at the Marine Corps Air Station. He said, I already talked to the CO about you, and the CO is all in for it. I was like, great. I was like, let me know when you can make that happen.
Yeah.
And he made it happen. So I ended up at the Marine Corps Air Station as a squadron gunny.
Yeah.
It was great. And, he and I got a chance to talk because when I got to the Marine Corps Air Station, I had my own nice office and everything when I got there, and he would come down and talk to me on occasions when I actually officially got settled in there. And he's like, hey, he said, I couldn't think of a better person for this billet than you. He said, because he said, I want you to know, he says, you made a hell of an impression on me as my platoon sergeant when I was going through OCS.
Yeah.
And, of course, I had a lot of respect for him. I was like, sir, I said, I appreciate you making those arrangements for me to be here. I said, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really want to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I said, sir, I'm really tired of moving around.
Yeah.
And, we had such a great relationship. I mean, there's some other things that I shared with him that I thought I would never have to share with him. And one of those type of things where I could have lost my career in the Marine Corps. But he ended up backing me up.
You don't get to see these guys after you build them. In this case, you do. With Scott, you do. But when I ask you, Scott, like, tell him directly, like, what it was. Like, what kind of a leader, what kind of a man did he help you become because of what he did?
Can I say something before he answers that question? Because being a drill instructor, or, just not even being a drill instructor, just being a Marine, I always had, you get to the point in Marine Corps, you get promoted, so you end up having Marines under your supervision, which I had a lot of Marines under my supervision when I was in the Marine Corps. And I always, my goal was always to lead by example.
Yeah.
That was my goal. I was real anal about that kind of stuff. Even when I was a drill instructor, I wanted to lead by example. I wanted my recruits or my officer candidates, I wanted them to see, I didn't only want them to see what it took to be a Marine. I mean, I just wanted to display the leadership styles and the skills that they would need to abide to be leaders of Marines. It was just, that was one of my main focuses as being a Marine and a drill instructor.
So what does that look like?
Just lead by example. And I always, I always wanted to make an impression. I always wanted to make that impression when it comes to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get fired, so he did his job. Came close a couple of times. It was no non-attributional to Q. But I think that even looking at things through a slightly different lens as an officer candidate, because I was prior enlisted, I really knew who the good ones were as far as those staff NCOs and who the great ones were. He's absolutely one of the great ones that made an impression. And not so much me, and I'm not saying I didn't need it more than others, but the new guys that really need that, when I looked at my examples of great staff NCOs that I had coming up through the ranks, I looked at guys like you and I was like, that is absolutely who you want to be. That's why I would told that story about him. He's the cookie cutter version. If you could, and he's one of a kind, obviously, but if you could make a whole army of Gunny Qs, like those are the guys you want. Because he's not low hanging fruit, and I can see not only his ability to not there's not this mentorship and he's all like, hey, Scott, candidate, let's have a heart to heart. There's none of that shit, because we're Marines. It's all business, and he was all business all the time, and that's absolutely what you need, because he wasn't there to be our friend. He was there to set that example, and he did it 24 hours a day, for week after week after week after week. And that is a grind on you emotionally And that's why one of my things, you know, if I could turn back the clock, is I probably would have wanted to be a drill instructor as an enlisted Marine. Like that would have been a cool thing.
Yeah.
Like because they are, even within the ranks of the Marine Corps, even today, they're iconic. Like it's hard for me not to look at this guy and see him without a Smokey Bear cover on. And you know, he was never really in my grill or anything, because there were times too where he's such a great leader that he would take off the mask, he'd literally take off the hat, and you'd see the Marine.
Yeah.
And he would teach you or say something like, hey, this has to happen for this unit to be better. For these other guys who are not at the level, you need to help them so we accomplish the mission. And the mission at that entry level is we graduate as many of these fucking guys and send them across the street for another grueling 6 months in Quantico. That's the goal. And I think we had a great, obviously, I mean, we had a bond and we had a great relationship, but I don't think it's not common.
Right.
I mean, I think it was we connected at an unspoken level, and I'm sure you did it with other candidates as well, but I think it's one of those things where 22 years be damned, it's like we saw each other fucking yesterday. I mean, it's just like that with Marines. It's just like that with guys who've gone through those trials. Yeah. And that's a long answer, as I usually give to short questions. I think that the impact and what I saw, how he really formed the impression of those guys who are, again, now, you know, lieutenant colonels and full colonels and some, you know, generals to this day. That says a lot. That's a huge ripple effect in the pond of leadership. So,
right.
I mean, we're never accused of being real humble creatures as Marines, you know, but that's something to really be proud of when you think about it, because you're that one guy and you've got this sea of thousands of people that you're going through this school.
Yeah, different personalities, all walks of life.
Yeah.
You know, different races, you know, backgrounds, religions, you know, political views.
Yeah.
And we don't see any of that, because
that's fine, man. You can go pee. Yeah, we'll cut all that out. Go pee. I can even talk to Scott while you're doing that. I used to be able to do flutter kicks indefinitely.
Were you a flutter kick champ?
I could do all of it. Like
what was your best event?
It didn't matter.
Mine was push-ups.
One of my things, like when the sergeant major or whoever it was, like who wasn't really like in my immediate hemisphere, you know, like when they would come up, you're like, Turner, get down with it. I just 0, 0, 0. And I just look at them, 0, 0. And I'd count off 0 until they're like, fucking knock it off. Go fuck off somewhere else. That's what I would do. You know, you can flutter kick, and I just look at them.
Yeah.
Like, whenever, man, you let me know. Jumping jacks, when we do side straddle hop, indefinitely. I will never stop.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Do you remember last year I was in Barstow and I was talking to a group of young Marines who are like high school kids, you know, they're just, it's like the Boy Scouts, but the Marine Corps version. And I'm like feeling all these questions. And then there's this kid in the front row, and he's a fucking redhead, of course. And he goes, what thing was the hardest for you? I go, running. And he goes, well, what thing is the best? I said, push-ups. And he challenges me to a push-up contest.
Does he really?
I said, hey, I might be old, but you're going to lose. And I crushed this little fucker.
Yeah.
He was probably like 14 years old. But,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. But you count on the redhead to like pull my punk card, you know?
Yeah. But there is a thing though, like you do reach a point where like the push-up is no different than walking. Like those muscles are developed. Yeah. You know how to do it indefinitely. And maybe you alter your muscles a tiny little bit so you can rest certain things. But yeah, I mean, do push-ups. How long do you want to go?
Yeah.
How many do you want to do? Let's do it. Not so much now, but you do get to that point where it's just indefinite exercise.
That's but the push-up is my litmus test of age. So I turned 50 last year. And so like when the day I can't just get down and knock out 50 push-ups, like legit Marine Corps push-ups, I'm thinking I got to step up my game, or like just exercise more, or if I feel like 42 and I'm hurting, I got to up my game. But that's my litmus test, is 50 push-ups. There's some shit on fucking Instagram now. It's, there's always the workout ads and like, can you do 50 push-ups? And I find myself physically flipping off my phone like, fuck you, I can do 50 push-ups.
50 push-ups.
Losers. And it's some 25-year-old kid, doing push-ups. I'm like, let's see you posting this when you're 50, brother.
Yeah.
So. But it's a tough game, man, to fight gravity. Everybody's got their challenges. And for me, it's just, a way of managing the stress. But yeah, the push-up is my litmus test. How many push-ups can you do, Gunny?
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
How many push-ups can you do, Gunny?
So speaking of push-ups, I actually do anywhere from 100 to 200 push-ups every day.
Look at you.
So I really couldn't tell you if I were to get down on this floor right now, I couldn't tell you how many I could do max, but I can tell you that I would think that I can do close to 100 max, considering, doing
In a row.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'll share this with you. So my mother was ill last year. So, I was out in Texas with my sister, help my sister take care of my mom when she was going through cancer. And so my brother-in-law and I, he's former Air Force. He spent like 4 years in the Air Force and got out. So we're always going back and forth, with this Air Force and Marine Corps thing, right? And he's like, yeah. But he goes, hey, how many push-ups can you do without stopping? And I was like, I don't know. And so, I was like, how many you think you can do without stopping? It's like, let me see what you can do. I challenged him. So he got down on the floor and he popped out like maybe 30.
Oh, that's not enough. Yeah.
So then I got on, and it might have been more than that. He might have did more than 30, but I got down, and this was like a year ago, and I think I pumped out like I think it was like 80.
That's legit.
Yeah. I think I pumped out 80 push-ups, but I think I could probably do more than that, considering that I increase the amount of push-ups I do daily. So I actually did 100 push-ups today before I came here, and other than just a light chest workout in my garage.
That's legit.
Yeah.
I was telling him I did Remy's push-up challenge.
Did you?
His Navy SEAL thing. So it was do your max set. So I'm like, 50's like, I'll do 50. And then you do 20, wait 20 seconds, 19, wait 19 seconds, 18 seconds. And I counted up, it's like 263 push-ups. I was like, holy crap, man. That's a lot of push-ups.
That's a lot of push-ups.
And I felt it the next day. And I texted Remy. I was like, dude, those were... Maybe the last 20 were kind of Salvation Army push-ups, but like I felt it, man. But it's tough, man. The philosophy of maintaining, good physical health, I think, builds good mental health.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think that's always important too, because we know a lot of guys who struggle with depression or alcoholism in the veteran community, or anybody does. I'm giving you guys a copy of this book, and I want to talk about it on the show. From my good friend, Dr. Shauna Springer, and it's called Warrior. It just came out this month. And one of the great stories she talks about in this book is that, in the 70s and 80s, whatever, throughout time, people are really proud of, I've got this great personal trainer. I've never been in better shape in my life. Or, hey, you got to go to my mechanic. My car is top performance. It's never been faster. But there's always been this stigma of, I go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Like, there's a stigma. Yeah. Even veterans, like, of course, not veterans or first responders who are dealing with the most high pressure jobs in the fucking world. But it should be, as Doc Springer says, hey man, I got the best head shrinker. She's down in Palm Springs or she's in San Diego. You got to check her out. And you're like, man, give me those digits. Yeah. And it's a cool thing. Right. Like, I've got, can I get in with her? Can I get in on her schedule or his schedule? That should be something even in the military.
For sure.
Where it's not, I don't know what you call it. But, I think the cool term is performance coach. Mm-hmm. But a performance coach can be any douchebag that has a fucking day goatee and works out at Gold's Gym and looks good in, a pair of Sungas. This episode sponsored by Sunga Life.
Right.
Sunga and Curve. Look
Jeff.
good, smell good.
She's a Navy SEAL too, who does designer swimwear now. Awesome dude.
A she?
No, he.
Oh, he? Okay. All right.
Yeah, he's
okay.
Navy SEAL, 12 years Navy SEAL. Now he does Brazilian bikinis and
wow.
Like the Silkies, Sunga shorts. Great stuff. Love Jeff. Love you, Jeff. But, the performance coach is different than a trained and certified psychologist that works on your mental health. that we're always talking this big game, this holistic. Yeah, it's a triad: physical, mental, education. But we don't do that, man. Like we have not gotten past that culturally in the military. We're saying it a lot, but we're not doing it. And I think that culture, and this ties into everything that's going on in the world too, this culture of policing, this culture of first responders, our culture of military, and this can be tied to the corporate sector too, on how you do business and anything you have. If we can really embrace it, if there's enough people that are willing to embrace that type of improvement, I think that's important. What do you think about, because I think you might be the oldest Marine now that you dumped your age out there, that I asked this question. Culture. From where we came to, we were talking about hazing and how the Marine Corps has grown and creating better leaders. Are you happy or unhappy with the way the culture has changed in our organization over the past, it's almost been 30, 40 years?
You talk about Marine Corps specifically?
Yeah, sure.
I heard that there has been changes in the Marine Corps. I mean, I think I recall talking to a Marine many years ago, and he was talking about recruits. They had to do something with in regards to a haze card.
Stress card.
Yeah, stress card. There you go.
Like,
and I was like, wow, what the hell?
Like, you're in my face too much. I need a training timeout.
Yeah,
I don't think that's true. I don't know
how true that was, but
maybe in the Army.
Yeah,
Probably in the Army.
Yeah,
definitely.
We have a card for everything.
Right.
Definitely, everyone should get the fucking day off. We're like, I'm gonna take a day off.
Right.
I'm sleeping in today.
Yeah, but I don't think there's, from what I've heard, I don't think there's been a lot of changes since the time I came to the Marine Corps until now that I'm aware of.
You're not going to be one of those guys at the VFW like, there's Gunny Q, and you're some old curmudgeon like, they don't make them like they used to.
Right.
Shit.
No, I'm not. No, that's not me.
Do you think they're making them better than they used to?
I think so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think so.
Me too.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's a more complicated job.
Yeah.
Hell
I mean,
yeah.
you think about the stack of books. What was the stack of books they asked you to read when you first got in?
Defense of Duffer's Drift, stands out.
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to remember.
Well, just compare that to what's that plus all the shit you have to read now.
Well, when we grew up, we were enlisted in the Marine Corps at the same time.
Yeah.
When did you come in?
I came in 1980.
80. So I came in 89.
Yeah.
So we came in the same generation. There was no such thing as a commandant's reading list.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there was no professional military, because we weren't considered professionals. Doctors are professionals, lawyers. And the military has become more professionalized, even though we don't require a certification.
Now Jim Mattis has 100 books before you're literate.
He says it, yeah. And
or 100, whatever the number. It's a lot.
Yeah, and Jim and Bing signed his book, Call Sign Chaos, which is another great book. But again, if you haven't read 100 books, Jim says you're functionally illiterate.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm a horrible reader. Says the fucking guy who writes for a living.
Yeah.
So
I am, though.
Yeah, I actually increased my level of reading, because reading is definitely knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
My wife's an avid reader.
You used to say that a lot. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, knowledge is power. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, knowledge is power candidates.
I do read a lot these days, and a lot of it's like current events type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to a book, that's where I needed. I kind of told myself I need to read more books, and my wife is the one that persuaded me to do that, because she's an avid reader. My wife, I'm amazed at how many she reads and how many books she's read already.
I'm glad you used the word avid reader and not voracious. I hate that word.
Yeah.
Voracious.
It sounds so fucking haughty and elitist. I'm a voracious reader. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, what are you? Because you read better than me? Go whatever.
So when I started reading books, a lot of it's like I don't get into non-fictional stuff.
Sure.
Non-fictional and fiction. Fiction is the make believe, right? Yeah. So I'm into the non-fictional stuff.
Okay.
So a lot of stuff that I have read when I started reading years ago is mostly military associated, because that's my it interests me.
It's your profession,
right? It's my profession. It's my background. So I have I enjoy reading those type of books. I wrote, like Scott's book.
Yeah.
I thought an incredible book to read.
Yeah.
It just gives you a reality of what he went through and what his Marines went through. I mean, it's just the reality, things that occurred in places in the Middle East.
Jim says, Jim, like I know him, but these are the best words that this person from this point in history has. No one writes a book and goes, I have to have asked it. Like they put it all in there, whether they're a Greek from 2,000 years ago to today. Like this is the person saying, I'm desperate for you to understand this topic. This is me. And if you can't respect that, then you're the problem, And
there's even some, I'm like you. I think, I don't know if I'd give a true confession, or regret is that I wish I'd read more earlier on in my life or made time like I do now to sit down and force myself to read. I regret it because I ran into guys that had read more than me. So I really regret that. But there's importance in fiction as well. And it's on our reading list, like Starship Troopers. There are great leadership lessons in those things. And I'm like you, I regret not reading all this stuff like the classics and things like that, or things I was forced, I'm doing air quotes, peeps, to read in high school or college. And I'm like, yeah, I gutted through it. Yeah, I understand it. But I wasn't really understanding the subtext and the real relationship to that. And, I guess it kind of happens when you get older too. You're like, it does really build your wisdom. And I think when me and you were, in our 70s, we can say like, hey, I'm glad I did that. And I want to share that with you. And we've had people on the show, primarily our age group. And we love pulling, like the John McKays who are professors and share that wisdom, because I think that's an important volume to this show, but it's an important volume to people that want the experience from the Break It Down show, that volume of encyclopedia, to get that experience of, I've always wanted to be a drill instructor. What's it like? Drill instructor, what's it like to be a drill instructor? Break It Down show. Harold Quivers. Boom. Yeah. Here's Q talking about what it was like and the challenges and the rewards and the benefits. Pete asked me on episode 500, like, hey, what guests do you want on, Scott? We were sitting right here and I said, younger guests.
Right.
Because I love their perspective too. Because I never learned more as a Marine or even today about Instagram or all the social media. You can thumb your nose at it. It's not going away from young people. When you stop doing that and you become that old curmudgeon, and things like the organization or your group, your tribe isn't getting better, I think that's it, man.
Right.
So,
What's one leadership lesson that anybody can learn, like right now? Because a lot of people listen to this, they're professional people doing things. What's one thing? You've trained a lot of leaders. You look at Scott, you got to be super stoked about his success.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no doubt.
What's one thing, like, whatever, knowledge is power, whatever, what is that scratchy voice bit of wisdom that you're going to impart on us now?
He's definitely the perfect example of where he came from, what he has accomplished.
Yeah.
So he's obviously looked up to people, somewhat like mentors that he could hone in on his own leadership skills. To answer your question, I mean, I always tried, like I said, I always was the type of guy, especially when I was in the Marine Corps, even today, at my current role in my position with the company I work for, I still try to lead by example.
Okay.
When I was in the Marine Corps, that was one of my pet peeves, just lead by example, just try to teach Marines how to be Marines.
Yeah.
And
I don't think that comes easily, though.
No, it doesn't come easily, no.
And I think that it's a bumper sticker to say, like, lead by example. What does it take for you to have that in the forefront of your brain, to always lead by example? I mean, is it a challenge to you? It's because it's not just a buzzword, man.
No, it wasn't really a challenge for me. So, just to give you a little bit of example of leading by example, I mean, I was very anal about what my uniform looked like. I wanted my Marines to see how squared away you're supposed to look in a uniform. When I was in the Marine Corps, you were allowed to take an iron to the canvas and get them nice sharp creases in your trousers. Things of that nature. Roll really nice sleeves up on your arms. Make sure all your chevrons are per the standards.
Yeah.
Your cover was blocked. I was anal about my cover always being blocked. Starched out.
It was like a Chinese throwing star.
Yeah, seriously.
If he took it off his head, he'd be like, boom.
Another example, my boots, I always was anal about my boots being spit shine.
Yeah.
These are the type of things I wanted my recruits or Marines to see. I wanted them to pick up on those kind of things, so they would, hey, I want to be like Gunny Q.
projecting that image is important, but
It wasn't all about uniform neither.
I think the underlying tone is the discipline it takes to do that.
Right.
And I'd come back with this too, because this is kind of cool. Is I know we've been talking for a while, but now, there's a lot of old school guys who's like, hey, yeah, I miss spit shining boots. I miss pressing camis. I miss blocking my cover. I miss spraying starch. I was like, think of the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of your life that you could get back. Or as a leader, from a leadership perspective, and I do this because it's a little bit of the pragmatist in me, is like all of those hours could be so better utilized. Let's just say what we were just talking about, reading a book.
Yeah. Reading a book, yeah.
What's more important, shiny boots? Reading history.
Right. See, that's the since you mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's another thing, I used to talk to Marines about, hey, you're in the Marine Corps, take advantage of all the benefits you have. Like I said earlier, it wasn't all about the uniform. I always told Marines, always take care of yourself. You always want to, take advantage of all the benefits you got in the military, and one of the other thing I used to always tell Marines is that you need to take care of your educational benefits. Absolutely. Because the Marine Corps might not be a career for you. You might decide, hey, this is not my cup of tea. Yeah. And you might decide, okay, I'm done. I'm going out to the civilian sector. Right. So you need to take care of your educational benefits, get that degree, so that will make you marketable. Yeah. When you get out of the military.
Yeah, it's so true. My NCO said, hey, no one here, because we're all very senior, it was a TRADOC assignment. So for us, it's all E7 and above kind of thing. They're all done doing their education, whether they need more or not. Right. The money is just sitting there. Right. Just fill out the form, they'll give it to you. And so they did. They basically paid for my entire master's degree, which free basically. Yeah. I used a couple of my own dollars through my GI Bill, but that was it. They were desperate to get rid of the money. It just goes back into a pot and someone does something dumb with it otherwise, So you're right. That education.
That's one of the things I regret when I was in the Marine Corps was just taking time out. When I did have opportunities, I worked all these crazy hours, being in that B billet type MOS as a DI. I wish I took more advantage of my educational benefits, because I actually didn't get my bachelor's degree until I got out of the Marine Corps. Yeah. But I wish I'd have got my bachelor's degree when I was in the Marine Corps, and I did have an opportunity to that. I just didn't.
It's tough, though.
It's tough. I didn't really. It's tough. It didn't, especially with all the stuff that I did when I was in the Marine Corps. It was challenging for me to, Plus, there was times when I was in the Marine Corps, they didn't have online. They didn't have online education. Right. Nowadays they do. Yeah. You can get your education online.
Yeah. And the command is more receptive to it. Right. Like I've been in commands where like, you absolutely aren't going to take any classes for anything because we're going to go to the field. And then we wouldn't even go to the field. Right. And we would just sit there in barracks and we trimmed the hedges today. Yeah.
We're fucking masters of wasting time too. Yeah. But I think we've gotten better at it too. So.
Yeah. So when I retired in 2002, I went to work for this company, defense and aerospace company called Rockwell Collins. Now they're called Collins Aerospace because they got acquired and bought out by a company called UTC. Mm-hmm. And when I was working with Rockwell Collins, people knew I was retired military. So I had a lady that worked in the company, and she approached me, and she goes, "Hey Q, I got, she was telling me about her godson. He had an interest in joining the military, so she had asked me if I could talk to him." So I linked up with this kid, and took him out to lunch on occasions, and he was interested in joining the Air Force. You can tell he's kind of apprehensive of committing himself to join the military. Just sitting down and talking to him because he was afraid of what he was running. He was kind of like worried about, more so the drill instructors getting up in his face and things of that nature, right? So we're talking the Air Force, and I was, reassured him. I was like, "Hey, you're gonna be fine." And he was interested at the time in going into the military police field. So I said, "You know what?" I said, "You don't have anything to worry about." I said, "I can assure you, you don't have anything to worry about." I said, Air Force, if I could, at the time, I think their basic training was 6 weeks.
There's never been a full metal jacket version.
Right. So
don't worry, join.
So one thing I can remember, when I was sitting there talking to him while we was having lunch, I was like, when you decide that you're definitely going to commit to this, I said, I want you to promise me one thing. I said, because you might go in the Air Force, and this might be something that you don't want to make a career out of. I said, but promise me while you're there for the 4 years that you're there, I said, promise me that you'll pursue your education.
Yeah.
I said, take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Because I said, because if you can get your degree before you get out of the Air Force, that's a Benny.
Yeah.
You know? And of course we kind of lost touch, but I think currently to this day he's still in the Air Force, because he just, once he got acclimated with the military style of living, he just loved it. It suited him.
Well, amen. I want to say first, there won't be a short of things to write on your epitaph, because you have made an impact in literally thousands of lives. That story with the Air Force kid, with me personally,
appreciate that.
And it's great to get a hang in. I mean, all of the things culminate, me being part of what I do with veterans and SaveTheBrave.org, and I have to attribute a portion of that to you. I mean, because you plant those seeds, man, and those they will ultimately cultivate into something that hopefully helps other people. And being a drill instructor, being on that stage, whether you realize it or not, and for all the DIs that are these young 20-somethings now leading the charge, making these Marines and safeguarding our country,
very rewarding.
Trust me, man. I'm sitting here with my brother, mentor, leader, and you will make an impact, and hopefully you'll see that. Not everybody will get this, but I think that's what's cool, Pete, about this show is, and I'm getting a little emotional, is like to make that connection again, dude.
Yeah,
It's
special.
It's very rare, but if you do it, man, and open yourself up to it, that's where the love is.
Yeah, it's very rewarding.
Thanks, man, and Semper Fi, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's very rewarding. There was times where I got emotional, especially when it comes to graduation.
Yeah.
When you got a recruit, he's trying to break his damn neck to come up and shake your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, I seen recruits.
I hunted this fucking guy down behind the theater. He was hiding. You were hiding out. I had to track him down to get my first salute. And there were Marines there were young lance corporals trying to get that dollar, that silver coin. I was like, no, this is the guy.
Yeah.
He was it. So.
Not only the recruit, you got parents, man, they're just thanking you forever. I mean, hey, you made so much of an impact on my son that I greatly appreciate, everything you done, and you can see how proud they are when they see their son graduate or their daughter graduate from boot camp. But it's that was in itself very rewarding for me, just to get that appreciation, whether it was from the parents or the recruit itself, because I had many recruits just like, I feel like a damn movie star, man. They're just busting their ass trying to shake your hand after they come off the parade deck, after they throw their hats up their covers up in the air, But yeah, I miss it. I think back at those times, and you think, man, sometimes I'm like, man, them years went by so damn fast, and sometimes I miss it. But sometimes, it gets to the point where you have to put all that behind you. But you'll never forget it. Yeah. You'll never forget it.